With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, you ready?
The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. You gotta do it now.
Wow, so talk about being off in the bold predictions last week, Matt. My bold predictions were just unbelievable. You know, I had Eric Decker going to be the number one wide receiver. Yeah, he had guys like Ted Ginn, David Nelson, Marcus Goodwin, Jason Avant, even Tyquan Underwood scoring more fantasy points than him this weekend. A bunch of nobodies. Just terrible. It may have been probably easier just to name off the people that, you know, didn't... that he did score more points than. He did that. He did that bad this week. Gronkowski, I said 3 touchdowns. I mean, geez, it would have been better off if I said 3 receptions, and I still would have been wrong.
Hey, at least he had 1 touchdown called back, was it, or one just missed?
He had a touchdown called back because of a penalty. And then the Matt Castle call, that was just crazy.
What did you say with Matt Castle? I forget.
That he would come in the third quarter and lead your team to victory.
He probably should have come in the third quarter.
He probably should have, but definitely didn't come close to coming in or your team winning against the Packers. But how did your bold predictions go? Hopefully better than mine.
They were a little better, yeah. I guess I could salvage a little bit for Blindside this weekend, although my rankings weren't the best. I had Golden Tate going for 100 and a touchdown. Sorry, I was wrong. I think he had 93 and 2 touchdowns, right?
I'm not sure about touchdowns. He had 93 yards. I remember that.
I had Daniel Thomas going for 90 yards and a touchdown. I think he had somewhere around 50, 60 total yards and a touchdown.
Yep.
But I also said he'd outgain Miller and outtouch Miller. That was not the case. It went back to Lamar being the guy this week. And then the other one I was way off. Roy Halou, 120 total yards and a touchdown.
No, way off.
Yeah, that didn't happen. The Redskins, I said he'd get about 11 carries, I said. They carried the ball twice, I think, as a team to running backs in the second half. They completely went against the run. So, hey, we call them bold predictions for a reason. They're nothing that we completely expect. Just, you know, got calls we throw out there every week. Maybe we should stop.
I was going to say, maybe we should just name the things we don't want to happen, and then they will happen. You know, just play the opposite.
Well, hey, no, I got 2 out of 3, kind of, so we didn't do that bad. But I'm sure Rob made a few.
Yeah, let's jump though into recapping some of these week 8 games here, and then we'll obviously preview the Thursday night game, talk about some waiver wire pickups, and then obviously play Matt's all in because it's Tuesday and that's what we do on Tuesdays. So Cowboys Lions, I mean Calvin Johnson, just wow, huh? I mean second most receiving yards ever from a wide receiver, the most in a regular, you know, just in the regular game, non-overtime game. 14 catches, 329 yards, and a touchdown. I think had 4 times he got pulled down inside the 5, so it could have been an even bigger game. And just to give you an idea on how well of a performance this was, only 3 quarterbacks this week actually threw for more yards than Calvin Johnson had receiving. I mean, that is just nuts. Currently on pace to outperform last year through 8 games, has 6 more receptions through 8 games than last year. Almost 200 more yards, 6 more touchdowns. Just is putting it on like a beast. You know why I think he did so well, Matt?
I think I got an idea. It might have to do with Ryan Broyles.
Yeah, it didn't really have anything to do with that. I mean, yes, you know, Ryan Broyles being out now for the rest of the year with a torn Achilles. But you know, I was just joking about that.
Yeah, let's be honest.
That wasn't the reason why he did so well. He's Megatron. This is what he does. Real quick, though, I just wanted to point out, Cowboys side, you know, Terrence Williams, 10 targets in this game, only had 2 receptions, you know, finished with 2 for 64 and a touchdown, you know, had a 60-yard touchdown that kind of helped save his fantasy day. Miles Austin, inactive in this one. So, Matt, I want you to kind of finish this sentence. Terrence Williams is a top blank receiver for the rest of the season. What do you think?
Actually, Marcus, that's more of a fill in the blank. If I was finishing a sentence.
Yeah, I know. Probably come at the end then. I guess.
Anyways.
Fill in the blank then.
Fill in the blank. Terrence Williams is a top 20 wide receiver.
Top 20, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, touchdown in 4 straight games. Since week 4, when he got his first full game as the starter when Austin got hurt, he's 6th in fantasy points for wide receivers, 9th in receiving yards, and tied for 4th with 4 touchdowns. So he's really been pouring it on lately. And, I mean, I think this is kind of what we're going to expect, moving forward. I think, Austin is either going to be inactive or really not a part of this offense anymore the way the injuries keep turning up. And then, Terrence Williams seems to be kind of the new Miles Austin. That's what it seems like, doesn't it?
Yeah, and let's be honest, with Des Bryant giving out so much positive energy, I think he called it, to everyone, how can you not be top 20?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's performing really well, getting the targets, getting the work. Miles Austin, I think we're going to see more of what we've seen out of Miles Austin so far. And the running game, it's not going to get any better, obviously, so I think they're going to turn more to the pass. And they have an excellent schedule coming up the next few weeks, so we should see a lot more of Terrence Williams. I think he's a guy that maybe you should kind of, it's not really a buy low when he's been performing this well, but maybe a guy that you can kind of sneak in and try to convince his owner that maybe this has been a little fluky, because I think we're going to see a lot more of this to come. Browns, Chiefs, Jason Campbell, we talked about him on Friday's podcast. In case you missed it, we kind of said that 10% of all of Campbell's throws in his career have traveled at least 20 yards in the air. On Sunday, he added 6 more, 15% of his passes. We said Josh Gordon would be just fine, and he was in this game. 5 for 132 and a touchdown on 10 targets. Already named the Week 9 starter, so, Gordon, I think, is still top 15 receiver. Kind of like him a little bit more with Jason Campbell, don't you? Do you prefer Jason Campbell over Brandon Weeden if you're a Josh Gordon owner?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Campbell, I think he's just a better quarterback. He was competent in Washington. I don't know if he ever got a fair shake there. He never really, was a guy that could put a team on his back or anything. But he's a capable quarterback, and I think he's certainly a better quarterback than Weeden. We saw that this weekend and just his first showing of the year. I think he'll get better as the season goes on with these guys, and yeah, definitely much better with Campbell. Yeah,
and I think they're going to keep going with the passing game because, McGahee, Matt, you were all aboard with this guy after Week 5 when he had 72 yards rushing and a touchdown. But since then, his fantasy points have been 3, 3, and 2. Just 3.5 yards per carry. Hasn't broke 40 rushing yards in any game since then. Are you ready to admit you're wrong on him?
Yeah.
It's time to just this guy.
Yeah, he's droppable.
I was gonna say I don't even think he's a top 30 running back. I think in fantasy this year, the rest of the season. What do you think?
Who cares at top 30? I'd rather have a wide receiver.
Yeah,
somebody with a little bit of upside. It's crazy, not too long ago, if it's a starting running back in the NFL, it's on a fantasy roster, they're on a fantasy roster. Yeah. Now we're talking about a starting running back that does not have to be rostered in even a 10 team. I'm sorry, even like a 14 team.
Yeah.
You get down to 16, maybe, I guess, just because of the slim pickings that start to happen, but certainly a droppable guy. I was wrong.
And then, Chiefs side here, after a 1 catch for 7-yard performance and just 2 targets, Dwayne Bowe, he's got to be droppable too, right? Averaging just 5 points per game this season, hasn't broke 70 receiving yards in a game this year. Last time, actually, he broke 70 receiving yards in a game was Week 9 of last year. That's how long it's been. Hasn't had a 100-yard game in over a year. It was Week 4 of last year when he did it. I just feel like you're never going to feel confident starting him. Obviously droppable too, right?
Yeah, I'd say he's droppable. Depends what you're dropping him for. I don't think I'm going to go drop him for, let's say the trendy Kenny Stills, but...
we just talked about McGahee. Which one of those two would you rather have?
I'd rather have Bowe.
Really? I'd rather have McGahee because I think McGahee at least has a better chance of a touchdown.
I'll agree with you. He's is probably more likely to fall into the end zone one of these weeks. So yeah, that's probably true.
Both are bottom barrel guys. Don't get me wrong. Like you said, we're not starting any of these guys, and in many leagues, these are going to be waiver wire guys. But like I said, I think the chance of a touchdown with McGahee a little bit better, so I'd rather have him.
Yeah,
plus a little bit more consistency on the work, I guess.
McCluster had a big day.
Yeah.
I think that's more of just fool's gold, not anything I'm really excited about.
I think it's more indicative of Alex Smith and his dink and dunk passes.
Well, it's also a case of, the number 2 receiver up against the Browns. Hayden is the focal point of Bowe. He watched him all day long.
Let's be honest, though. You and I could shut down Dwayne Bowe the way he's playing.
No, I don't think it's shutting down Dwayne Bowe. I think it's just the philosophy of this offense and the quarterback that's throwing it. I still think he's a very talented guy, and the numbers might not be there, but the way that the defense has to respect him because of what they know he can do. I think he does help them, on real football days, not so much in the fantasy football world.
All right, Dolphins, Patriots. What is going on with the Patriots receivers? I mean, I don't know if you saw the snap counts, but Dobson just 50 snaps in this game, Amendola 40, Edelman 33, and Tompkins just 14 snaps in and only a little over 20% of their plays. Are any of these guys ownable? I mean, they're just not getting in the game. They're not playing, like you'd expect a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver to play, getting, a number 1 receiver should be in there for 90% of the snaps, and the number 2 wide receiver should be in there 70 to 75% of the snaps. I mean, let's put it this way. Out of those guys, which one do you want to own? Early in the season, for me, it was Tompkins, but at just 14 snaps a game, it can't be Tompkins.
No, I'd probably still want to own Amendola, just in case he gets it together, stays healthy. I mean, I don't want any one of these guys at all. I think Bill needs to make up his mind and play somebody so there's some rapport that gets built out there with Brady. Mm. And what the hell is wrong with Brady? This is just they're winning, but it just looks ugly.
I mean, I guess no win is ugly. Technically, a win's a win, but they're ugly.
Yep.
And then going on to their running backs here, it's just as ugly. I mean, Ridley was in on just 22 snaps in this game. On the season, only been in on snaps on 32.1% of their plays. Blunt just 16 snaps, and Bolden 30 snaps. So none of these guys, they're kind of splitting the workload 3 ways. It's a 3-headed monster back there. Ridley obviously getting the touchdown and doing a little bit more with the work, but it's just kind of hard when they're not getting the snaps. I found it interesting that Brandon Bolden is actually the Patriots running back this year that has been in on the most snaps this year. 202 snaps for 33.4% of those plays. Stephen Ridley very close behind, but I think it would have been a lot close. I think Ridley would have overtaken Bolden if it wasn't for him obviously missing that one game.
I think it was interesting. The first, I think it was 10, 11 carries were with Blunt and Bolden. Before Ridley even got a touch, it was interesting. I think there was some kind of discipline thing there, and that's why he didn't play to start the game. I think Ridley's... I'm close to saying Ridley's back. It's pretty obvious when you watch the games how much better he is than
he's the guy you want to own out of those 3.
I think the Patriots, the way Tom's playing, they've got to go to this more of a running style that they've been. You're even seeing it in the red zone. They're carrying the ball quite a bit versus what they're used to doing in the past few years. Tom Brady throwing those touchdowns. So I think it has a lot to do with those weapons, being hurt, banged up. But I think they got to go back to a little bit more running game, and I think Ridley is on the upswing. I think things are definitely getting better for him, although the snap count didn't show it. He had another solid game.
Yeah. And then Lamar Miller and Daniel Thomas in this game combining for 136 rushing yards and 27 carries. It's over 5 yards per carry. Just continues to show you that you can run on the Patriots with no Will Fork and no Mayo. So keep that in mind moving forward. Bills Saints, Drew Brees, 5 touchdowns in this game, including 2 to a limited Jimmy Graham, who was still being utilized on those red zone plays. Kind of teaches you that even a limited Jimmy Graham is still a top 3 play every week. And then real quick, after seeing 6 or more targets in the first 4 games of the year, Marcus Colston, just 11 targets the last 3 games, a total of just 44 yards in those 3 games.
And only 4 red zone targets this year, which is
not the focal point anymore. So rest of the season, Colston or a guy that we just talked about, Dwayne Bowe.
Colston. I just like the offense more. I think there's a better chance of that happening there.
Yeah, it's still Colston for me too. Colston or currently the number 11 wide receiver in fantasy, Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I think one week had a little bit to do with that ranking, but
yeah, he's up to number 11 a lot because of last week, but 3 straight weeks with a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm going Marvin Jones.
I think so too. I think I'd rather have Marvin Jones. Colston or Harry Douglas, a guy with 2 straight 100-yard games.
Unbelievable, huh? 18 targets this week for Harry Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
I think Roddy's going to be coming back. I like that he's been sitting. It's going to move Tony Douglas back to that. I think I'm going to stick with Colston there, but if my record is horrible and he wins now, so next week, I'm going to say
Well, next week is definitely Douglas.
Yeah.
I still think for me, the rest of the season, it's still Douglas. I mean, he's getting the targets. They're looking for him. I think even when Roddy's back, he's going to be the guy that gets all the attention. So people are going to kind of focus on him, and it's just going to leave Douglas open for more.
I think
work.
he's a little bit better than I thought he was.
Yeah, that's for sure. Glad to see them sit C.J. Spiller in this game. Dealing with the high ankle sprain.
Yeah, which I want to know is new on the report. That hasn't been what's been on there.
They haven't said that it was the high
so
ankle sprain.
that's kind of interesting. Did he have a setback that we don't know about, or is it just finally acknowledging what it is?
Not sure. Just happy to see him sitting out and kind of getting healthy. If I'm a fan, if I'm one of his fantasy owners, I'm actually hoping he sits out this week as well because it's a tough matchup against the Chiefs. But then the upcoming schedule after that gets really soft for the Bills. So this is when I hope that he rests and gets healthy for. At Steelers versus the Jets, then their bye week, then the Falcons, then at the Bucks, at the Jaguars, and finally versus the Dolphins. So a real easy schedule there for running backs.
Bucks is not an easy schedule.
Well, no, not all the matchups, but overall it's a very easy matchup, for him moving forward. So I really hope he kind of rests up this week as well and becomes that old C.J. Spiller that we saw last year, those flashes. Then real quick, I just wanted to mention Scott Chandler built some nice chemistry here with Thad Lewis. 7 catches on 11 targets. Ironically, that's the 7 catches were as many targets as he's had all the last 2 weeks. So 7 targets last 2 weeks, 7 catches in this game.
Yeah, I'm not buying into
Getting utilized a lot more, but yeah, not buying it either. Giants-Eagles. This game was literally a rematch of Week 5, and it seemed that way. We kind of mentioned it on Friday's podcast. But, we mentioned about Vic actually hurt his hamstring in this game in Week 5. And, hey, it happened again. Vic said he heard a loud pop. And right now, your guess is as good as mine as to how long he's going to be out. But from the sounds of it, it's going to be a couple of weeks. I got to think you want no part of the Eagles except for LaShawn McCoy. But even McCoy kind of struggling these last few games, with these quarterback issues. Just 15 carries for 48 yards rushing in this game. Another 4 for 17 receiving. Hasn't gone over 80 rushing yards. Has only gone over 80 rushing yards 3 times this year. And in these last 4 games since Vic got hurt, just 3.4 yards per carry. Matt, you're a McCoy owner. Are you getting a little nervous about this quarterback situation and how this is affecting him?
Yeah, the Eagles are on a bye this week, correct?
No, they're playing.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, this was a week I'm going to be looking to trade him. I'm real worried with Vic being out. I think he's going to be out quite a while. The offense is in shambles. Foles is likely to be back this week. He's been cleared for contact, so I got to,
Foles
I'm
sounds
guessing
like
he's going to be playing this week, so that helps, but certainly didn't look good in the last game he was in. Barkley, though. I am worried about McCoy. I mean, I still think he's a top 5 running back, but I don't think he's a guy that's going to contend for number 1 anymore, like I did before. Up until a week ago, I would have said probably Charles 1, McCoy 2, but I don't know anymore. I think you should try to trade him while his value is still completely elite.
Yeah, you definitely want to get rid of him now because, like you said, Vic's even a healthy Vic, it's still kind of hurting because he's not the mobile Vic that he used to be, and defenses are keying in a little bit more on McCoy. Hakeem Nicks in this game leads the team in targets, but finishes with just 7 for 51. But no drops in this game, so good job, Hakeem Nicks, no drops. Peyton Hillis, 20 carries for 70 yards rushing. Jacobs is said to have been able to play, but they wanted to rest him as a precaution. Jacobs and Andre Brown expected to be back after their bye week this week. How do you think the workload is split? I personally think a majority of the work is going to go to Andre Brown, with third down work going to Peyton Hillis, with maybe 5 carries a game going to Brandon Jacobs, and those carries are going to be more the short yardage and goal line stuff. What do you think?
I think these guys all have very similar skill sets, and the Giants need to get somebody else in there to complement them, to be honest with you. They are all very similar. They're all goal line backs. You know what I mean? I think Brown, I agree with you, is going to be more of the focal point for sure. He's been running for weeks and I guess looks pretty good. So I think he's going to come back, and while he won't get the workload that you'll expect if he can stay healthy, a couple weeks down the road, I think he'll get a heavy dose. I agree with you. I think Hillis is the third down back. I've been telling you that.
Just catches
probably
balls
for
a
the
little
rest
better
of the
than-
season. Yeah,
catches
he's-
balls a little bit better than Jacobs.
does a good job, getting out there, getting his head turned around, catching the football, and finding the little soft spots when he gets out there. So, yeah, I think you're about right. It's going to be mostly the Brown work, but then you have Hillis with the third down, and I don't know how much Jacobs is going to get in there.
I don't really think it's going to be that much.
Five-
Like I said, 5 carries. A
Five
game.
the first week, 5-7 the first week, but then I think that will dwindle as Brown gets more in football shape, and now we just got to hope that Brown can stay healthy.
49ers Jaguars. Colin Kaepernick, another 54 yards rushing. Now has 122 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 games.
Hey, wait, sorry, I wanted to ask you one thing because I didn't get a chance today. Was there any injury reported with Ruben Randall?
I didn't see
Because he had no targets. Jernigan?
I believe he had targets. He just didn't catch anything.
I'd like to look it up. I'm pretty sure he didn't have any targets, and Jernigan had 4. So I was just wondering what the hell happened to Ruben Randall.
Did
So I didn't
kind
know.
of disappear there.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
All right.
Not sure. We'll have to look that one up. But 49ers Jaguars, like I said, Colin Kaepernick, 54 yards rushing, now 122 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns the last 2 games. Kind of looks like the read option's back and here to kind of stay. In Week 8, he was the 3rd highest scoring quarterback despite only throwing for 164 yards and 1 passing touchdown. A couple weeks, I think last week we kind of mentioned, averaging only 13 completions a game. This game, just 10 completions. So it's amazing to see him as a fantasy relevant quarterback with just 10 completions. I mean, that running will do it for you. So I think based on the fact that they're not throwing the ball that much, Vernon Davis still a must start because of his red zone presence. But a guy like Anquan Bolden, I think that ship has kind of sailed for any of his receivers, and I'm a little worried. Well, maybe not so much about Michael Crabtree when he comes back, because I guess he'll take some of that red zone looks too, but not too big on the 49ers passing game. But their running game, on the other hand, here, Frank Gore, 3rd in fantasy scoring, 1st in rushing yards, and tied for 1st in rushing touchdowns since Week 4. Do you think he's a top 5 running back going forward? I mean, you obviously have Peterson, Charles, and I would say Lynch ahead of him. But after that, battling for those next 2 spots, you got McCoy, Reggie Bush, Eddie Lacy, Arian Foster, Noshawn Moreno. I mean, he's a top 5 running back, right? Rest of the season?
I think for me it goes Charles,
Lynch, Peterson,
McCoy,
and then Gore for me.
Um,
And Lacy and Bush are very close behind.
I don't think so. I think I like Foster more than Bush. I think I like. Yeah, I mean he's top 7 for me, I guess. Him and Moreno are very close for me.
Well, I'd much rather have Gore.
One thing I wanted to bring up too with the 49ers, Week 10, Mario Manningham's back, so keep an eye on that.
I don't think that's going to have any fantasy relevance.
Talented player in New York. He got to San Francisco, had some bad luck injury concerns, but now he's supposed to be healthy, ready to go for Week 10, and they don't have much else to throw to there. So, interesting name to keep in mind.
Maurice Jones-Drew in this game, highest rushing yard total of the season, highest receiving yard total of the season. Since Week 5, MJD is actually a top 10 in the NFL in total yards by running backs. In this game, had 8 targets, and in the previous 7 games combined, only had 13 targets. So getting more involved in the passing game. I think, I'm not saying MJD is back by any means, but getting more involved, starting to come out of that, starting to get back into running back 2 territory instead of that flex, and bench worthy that he was before.
And with the way running backs have been this year, a pretty solid running back, I think, rest of the season.
Yeah. Justin Blackmon. Matt, after Week 6, you dubbed him as a top 15 or 20 wide receiver. I still said top 30. But after these 2 weeks, a 5-point performance and a 3-point performance, you ready to start agreeing with me as a top 30 guy and not a top 20? Or do you still think that, those were just bad games and he's going to pull out of it?
I think he can pull out of it. He's been banged up, hasn't been practicing much. I don't know how healthy he really is. Made it through trade deadline. I know there's some talks about his name being thrown around out there. Not as much as some of the other receivers, but I did hear about it. I think he can still be a top 20 guy. But
He
certainly,
can be one.
certainly after these couple of weeks, I'm kind of fading a little bit.
So you're thinking more 20 to 25?
Well, I'll stick with what I said for now, but let's see what happens one more week. Give me one more week.
Well, another guy who we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier here is kind of moving into that top 20 range, possibly the way, obviously this last week went. Marvin Jones in the Jets-Bengals games, 8 for 122 with 4 touchdowns, caught all 8 of his targets. Like we said, the number 11 fantasy wide receiver on the season, but, after having a huge game like this, that kind of boosts up those numbers pretty mightily. Quietly has had a touchdown in 3 straight games now, and a total of 6 over those 3. Just an interesting guy to watch. We'll talk about him a little bit more when we talk about our waiver wire pickups. Giovanni Bernard, he's just killing his fantasy owners. I mean, just when you thought he was poised to take over, these last couple weeks have just been terrible. Just 6 touches in this game, the same as Cedric Pierman. I don't know what Marvin Lewis is doing. I mean, he needs to get his shit together. This is Giovanni Bernard. You drafted him as the number 1, running back this year. Play him like that. Stop 6 touches, really? The same as Cedric Pierman? I think that's just crazy. Meanwhile, the Jets running backs, just as frustrating. Matt, I know you were all aboard Chris Ivory last week after his 34 carries, but just 6 this week. I mean, it's just a mess over there, isn't it?
I was all aboard.
Yeah, you were loving Chris Ivory last week.
I got to play that back. I don't think so.
Oh, I'll have to find that one for you.
I think it's a case of one guy's for when they're ahead, one guy's for when they're behind. Bilal Powell, they were behind in this game a lot. Bilal Powell was their guy to catch the ball. The
so
third
Ivory's
down
more
guy.
Ivory's more the ground, grinded out guy.
Grinded out guy, and I think that's the way this game worked out. They're playing from behind, so Powell was in the game a lot. I don't want to have to start either one of those 2 guys going forward.
Yeah, definitely not.
Unless there's an injury, and then maybe that's the only thing that would really clear it up for you.
Steelers, Raiders. For the second time this year, Terrell Pryor rushes for over 100 yards as he breaks a 93-yard rushing touchdown, which was the longest in NFL history for a quarterback. Ironically, that 15 fantasy points Pryor scored in that first 19 seconds of the game would be as many as he'd finished with in this game. Nice to see McFadden kind of return to a full workload too, 26 touches with 2 touchdowns. And then Le'Veon Bell, just another miserable game. I'm still not a believer. I think in a touchdown-only league, I love him because I think that's what he is, a touchdown guy. But in normal leagues, I'm not seeing it. And then, just real quick, Emmanuel Sanders, 7 for 88 on 10 targets, has had at least 8 targets in 5 out of their 7 games this year. So, Matt, rest of the season, Emmanuel Sanders or T.Y. Hilton?
T.Y. Hilton. Too big a void gone in Indianapolis there. I want to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. Emmanuel Sanders or Michael Floyd?
Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, I was going to say, that one's not even close for me, though. You seem to be pausing there for a second, but no. Carson Palmer has just been horrendous.
Yeah.
Threw his
typical
Sanders.
interception this week, as usual.
Emmanuel Sanders or Austin Pettis?
Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, definitely. Kellen Clemens looked ugly last night.
And not only did he look ugly, but he also played terrible.
Yeah, exactly. I see what you did there. Emmanuel Sanders or Brian Hartline? I'm going Hartline there.
Yeah.
As weird as this sounds, I like Tannehill more than I like Roethlisberger. They're throwing the ball a lot, and Tannehill is doing fairly well throwing the ball.
They're tied. How about that? I'll go Emmanuel Sanders just to be opposite from you. I'll go with Emmanuel. They're very close for me. And again, I don't know what it's like to have to play these kind of guys.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you're just amazing. I'm
unbelievable.
Yeah.
How many points have I scored? 988 in a 12-team.
Trade rape. That's all I got to say.
Non-PPR.
Redskins, Broncos.
Unbelievable.
Julius Thomas, X-ray on his ankle came back negative. There couldn't be a more perfect time for his bye week, for their bye week for him. Just give him some time to rest up. And then, speaking of tight ends in this game, Jordan Reed, 8 catches for 90 yards on 14 targets. They are just loving him. Robert Griffin obviously just looking for him a lot. Since their bye week in Week 5, Jordan Reed leads all tight ends in the NFL in targets, second in receiving yards, and second in fantasy points. Our own Ty Miller, that writes for Blindside, he actually made a trade today with he plays in a league with the NFL Network's Adam Rank, and they actually made a trade. He gave up Jordan Cameron to get back Jordan Reed. Matt, what are your thoughts on that? Would you rather have Cameron or Reed the rest of the season?
I'm going to say Cameron.
See, I think I'd rather have Reed.
Yeah.
He's getting the targets. He's getting
it's
the
unbelievable.
work.
It's hard to jump on him that quickly, but I mean, here we are, Cameron. What's he? 8 weeks into his career, basically, of being prominent. Reed is his number one guy. It's pretty obvious how often he looks to him.
Matt, you're a Cameron owner, though. I mean, you got to tell me, going off the top of my head right now, Cameron hasn't had a touchdown now in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's been a while.
Yeah,
it's been a while, and I think that might be the difference for me with Jordan Reed. If he's getting that many targets and he's being looked at that much by Bobby Three Sticks, he's going to get the touchdowns. And Cameron, not so much. I mean, the quarterback changes have been kind of affecting him, kind of not.
I don't know how much of a red zone threat. I mean, Reed's a strong kid, but he's 6'2". He's not like these 6'4", 6'5", 6'6".
Oh, no. I'm not comparing him to the Grahams and the Gronkowskis and stuff. I'm just saying.
The Camerons.
I think they're just looking to him a little more than you.
Yeah, I'd say it's real close. Cameron has flown up the boards for everybody, including me, so I don't have a problem with that trade at all, Ty, at all. I
like it.
Yeah, he might be right.
Alfred Morris in this game, 17 carries for 93 yards. Another game for him with over 5 yards per carry, 5.2 yards per carry on the season. I don't get it. Washington, your defense is bad. Slow the game down with your run. Keep the game close. This year, just 2 games with 17 or more carries, and ironically, it's been the last 2 games for him. Last year, Alfred Morris had 12 games of 17 or more carries. Even had quite a few games last year with over 25 carries, so he was really getting a lot of work last year. Just give him the damn ball. I don't get it. Slow the game down. Keep the game close. I mean, what are you afraid of?
I think the difference is last year they were good, and this year they're not. They're playing from behind quite a bit. Obviously, this one they were up 21-7 at one point. Like I said, 2 carries in the second half. That's just... I don't know how do you go away from a guy that was producing like he was.
You got to know that your defense is bad, so you got to say in your head, I don't want to get in shootouts.
Yeah, especially with
who
you were on the opposite side of the field with.
I don't get it at all. Falcons, Cardinals, Andre Ellington, 15 carries, 154 and a touch. Broken 80-yard touchdown run. Bruce Arians already said that Rashard Mendenhall will be the starter when healthy. And it just kind of reminds me of those, the memes that you see online. Bruce Arians, why you hate football? What is going on? I mean, obviously Ellington it should be the guy. Maybe, Mendenhall being the starter is more a title than anything. Because you got to get Ellington the ball, right? I mean, he looked good in this game. He looked explosive. He looked amazing. Far better than Mendenhall's looked in any game this year. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I think he had 17 total touches, right? 2 receptions. So I just want to give him much more work than that. He's not a big guy, and
which is fine. But how many games this year has Mendenhall had that many touches? I mean, that's about the
17?
workload.
Yeah,
that's about the workload Mendenhall was getting. So why not just name Ellington your starter?
I don't think it matters who's the starter.
Ellington's the guy you want to own.
Just because Mendenhall's the starter doesn't mean he's going to be the guy that gets the most touches. But I don't think the goal line situation is going to change. That's going to be Mendenhall's.
Yeah, the goal line will still be Mendenhall.
Andre had a great game here. I don't think you got to get too excited about him. He's still going to be limited in his touches. I don't think he's going to get more than 17 in a game this year. So. Talented player. I don't know if he can handle the workload, and obviously the coaches don't think so either.
We had a lot of questions going into this game on Sunday morning about Jacquizz Rodgers and Steven Jackson, and I'll just say I was definitely wrong by going all in on Steven Jackson. I thought he would have a top 10 day here, and I was obviously wrong. But I did mention that in Jackson's lone healthy game in Week 1, Jacquizz Rodgers only had 3 touches, so I kind of warned a lot of people to stay away from Jacquizz in this game. And Jacquizz finished with just 4 touches for this game. So I got to ask you, with Steven Jackson's struggles, is he a top 15 running back moving forward?
Yeah, I think he's going to get better with time. This was his first game back. I don't think he was moving like he was healthy, although he was in the game enough to make you think he was, but the thing is when we were excited about him this preseason, obviously we're looking at a totally different situation. This isn't the Atlanta Falcons that we were all expecting, without Roddy, without Julio. They're going to focus on Steven Jackson. There's not much else left to scare you. So if he doesn't finish top 15, it's not going to be surprising here on out. But I still believe in his talent, and considering that Matt Ryan is still there, I think this offense can be good enough to make him a solid play.
I'm going to say he's right in that 15 range for me, but it's mostly because of potential right now, and obviously not the way he's playing. Packers, Vikings. Matt, since the bye week, Peterson is only averaging 12 carries a game. I mean, that's another one I just don't understand. I mean, it's not like you look at Ponder and Castle and Freeman and you're like, you know what? I think our best chances of winning the game is letting these guys air it out. I mean, since the Week 5 bye, Peterson, the 19th running back in fantasy scoring. What do you think is going on with Peterson? Why do you think they're limiting him so much? Do you think there's an injury we don't know about, or what's going on there?
I think if you give Adrian 25 carries a game, it's going to be hard to go 1-15. And I think that's what the Vikings are trying to do.
That's what they're trying to do?
I mean, I don't think that's the case, really. But like I said last week, Freeman, 53 passes for a guy who came on your roster not even a week prior. It was unbelievable to me. And
I think Castle's looked the best for you guys this year.
I agree, yeah.
And he's the guy that they seem reluctant to put in there, like only if they have to. So I think it almost is. It's almost like they're tanking on purpose to get Bridgewater.
Yeah. You know what I noticed, though, watching this game, I thought was the best Peterson's looked in a while.
Just give him the damn ball.
There was some questions about, the hamstring. You've heard about it, the talk. It was a little bit hurting. I thought he looked so explosive in this game, and when the game started, I thought we might see a big game out of him. He does well against Green Bay. I don't know what the problem is with him. I don't think it's with Peterson. I think it's the team around him and the coaching staff. So that isn't going to go away. It's worrisome.
You think he's still a buy low guy? Like if you can buy him as a
based on history, yes,
back?
I have to think that you have to.
I don't get it. He needs to get more work. I just don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
Packers side though, you kind of got what you expected. Nice days out of Roger, Lacey, Nelson, and Boykin. Going forward, I think Lacey's going to be a top 10 running back. He's getting a lot of work, getting obviously the goal line looks. I really, really like him. Seahawks, Rams. If you told me Russell Wilson was only going to throw for 139 yards and Lynch would only have 23 rushing yards in this game and the Seahawks would still win, I'd call bullshit on you. I mean, I can't believe that with that poor of an offensive performance, they still pulled out a win here. But, both Wilson and Lynch are going to be fine. You're still starting them next week against the Bucs. Just don't overthink that. Zach Stacy, though, has his best game as a pro here. 26 carries for 134 yards. Injures his ankle in the game, and Dale Richardson takes over. Rams are saying it's a low ankle sprain, but, something to watch. But, Matt, I got to ask, has Stacy moved up into like a top 15 running back for you? I mean, since being named the starter, his fantasy points have been 7, 8, 14, and 13. Since week 5, he's the running back 12 right now in fantasy scoring. So, like I said, top 15 guy the rest of the way?
I don't think so. Not with Kellen Clemens as a quarterback. This game was fluky. I can't believe they stayed in this game like they did, and that allowed them to get the 26 carries to Stacy that they got. And he looked very good. I like his talent. I talked about him, like I said, back in the draft review we did. Loved him coming out of college, but just that the offense is going to be hurting, and I don't see him getting 26 carries in another game this year, to be honest. So I don't know about top 15. Yeah, I don't think so. I think if Bradford was still there, maybe.
I was going to say, the thing keeping him out of my top 15 is the touchdowns. He's not getting the touchdowns.
Yeah, although he probably would have last night.
He probably would have. It's just
they're not getting that ankle sprain.
They're not getting the opportunities is the problem. It's kind of like the Steven Jackson of old when he used to play for the Rams. Would get you a ton of yards, but never got you those touchdowns because they never had the opportunities.
Right. Yep.
But Matt, I got to ask you. Back on October 6th, you and I actually made a bet. From week 5 on, I said Zach Stacy would outscore Noshawn Moreno in fantasy points. You still feeling confident about that?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I think you kind of have to.
Moreno had 19 this week.
What I should have done is made it based on yards because the touchdowns, Moreno's just killing.
Rushing yards?
Just total yards. I think total yards, Zach Stacy will definitely have more. But I think Moreno, where he's really pulling away in this bet, is those touchdowns because they just keep on coming. Then just real quick, I just wanted to mention Jared Cook leads the team in targets with 6. This is the first full game with Kellen Clemens, so just something to watch there. If Cook ends up being, the guy that Clemens is, Clemens' favorite receiver that he's always looking for, if they're going to throw more and he throws more effectively, Cook may be a guy to watch again. But let's jump into the waiver wire this week. Not a whole lot of names out there to really pick up. Not a lot of guys that really make you go wow. But Marvin Jones, we talked about him at the top of the podcast. 3 straight weeks with a touchdown. Has to be your number one waiver claim. But in a league with a $200 fab budget, how much would you throw at this guy?
His potential. I mean, it's hard to say this because he just scored 36 points, but I don't think his ceiling is extremely high because of who's on the opposite field. Opposite side of the field.
You're worried about AJ Green?
Yeah, AJ Green is always going to be the guy there. This week was an aberration.
You don't think there's going to be two guys that'll be fantasy relevant, though?
I think they will.
Mohamed Sanu last year actually kind of had this role.
So did Hawkins in the beginning of the year?
Yeah, so there was for a while a couple of guys last year that were fantasy relevant.
Yeah,
I think Dalton can do it.
$200, the way Dalton's been playing, certainly.
I'm going to say $30 to $35.
Yeah, I could see that. And if you're hurting for wide receiver, say you're the guy that lost Julio, and you've been looking for something.
You've been waiting this long trying to find somebody?
I'm sure, that's not a guy you just replace, unless you're me, but you have...
And Marvin Jones, no Julio Jones, by the way.
Certainly not.
Jones is not
But a guy, I think, probably the best one to go out there and fill your roster with, assuming... I think I'd rather have Terrence Williams, if he was still out there.
Those guys aren't still out there.
Right. So that's why, I think this would probably be your best bet.
Daniel Thomas, real quick here too. Back-to-back double-digit touch games for him coming out of their bye week. Didn't have any 10-plus touch games prior to that. Being a Patriots fan, I watched this game pretty closely, and Thomas and Miller seem to alternate on drives. Miller's in for one drive, Thomas the next. Miller in for the next drive, Thomas the next. And I think why the workload looked so different between the two was the drives that Thomas happened to be in on weren't drives that were sustainable, that kind of went the whole length of the field like Lamar Miller's were. So I think the workload actually gets a lot closer than it looked like in this game because they were kind of going back and forth. But I think Daniel Thomas might be a nice waiver wire add. Like I said, getting a lot more touches out of the bye week. Mike Tolbert, if he's still out there, I know a lot of leagues he probably isn't. Yes, Jonathan Stewart's back and practicing again, but Tolbert touchdown for the last 5 games, and I think Stewart kind of digs into D'Angelo Williams more. You have any thoughts about either Tolbert or Daniel Thomas?
Daniel is, he's an injury away from being a feature back, and is a fairly talented player. He was a second-round pick just a few years ago, and it's not like he's old. He hasn't lost a step or anything. Tolbert, I really, there's 3 guys there to deal with now. I think Stewart's going to get some goal line touches. He's going to get some catches out of the backfield, as D-Will has been as well. I don't know. I don't really want any part of that group. Maybe one more week here with D'Angelo getting 15 carries or so, hopefully. But we don't even know how healthy he is, so I don't mind picking up Tolbert. We haven't heard definitive answers about D'Angelo and this injury that he had last game that he came out with. So, yeah, Tolbert has certainly been producing. I just don't think you should expect what he's been doing because Stewart's back.
Jake Locker, another guy that I think is a great waiver wire pickup for this week. I kind of talked about him in my Mary Cheat dump last week, but if you take out weeks 5 and 6 when he didn't play due to injury, he's the quarterback 11 this year. And then, I know this is kind of nitpicking on the stats, but if you take out the first 2 weeks of the year because of a slow start, he's the quarterback 2 this year behind just Peyton Manning. So again, a guy that's really, kind of when healthy has been performing really, really well. And then as a bye week filling guy, I think he's excellent. This week, up against St. Louis, excellent matchup for him. I think he's going to have a great, great fantasy week. Matt, I know you picked him up as a Stafford replacement bye week fill-in guy. What do you think of Locker? I think he's going to have an amazing week. I say over 20 fantasy points this week for Locker again.
Yeah, I was excited about the matchup, but they really did look pretty good against Seattle.
They were getting to Russell Wilson a lot.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. I think that has a lot to do with the offensive line issues that they're having in Seattle with the tackles. But I definitely agree with you. He's a guy I picked up, so obviously I like him. Another name I want to throw out there too is Andy Dalton. He's been outstanding. He's been putting it together, and with the emergence of Jones, opposite of AJ, of course, he's got some weapons to throw to. Two very good tight ends.
He still has Jermaine Gresham and he still has Tyler Eifert.
Yeah, plus the running backs complement each other very well. It's a pretty good offense there.
Dump off passes to Gio. I mean, got a lot of weapons.
So, Andy Dalton, I might even like more than Jake Locker.
Mr. Son of a Beach, let's play some cards.
All in, bluffing, calling, or folding him. Trent Richardson.
Calling or folding.
Rob Gronkowski. I am all in on Jamal Charles.
He was just compared to Barry Sanders.
All right, so let's jump into the all-in segment here, Matt.
One more thing, Marcus. You brought this up to me with Moreno. Their talks about reducing his workload because, let's face it, they're in the playoffs. They want him healthy. He's a guy that's got some injury history. You saw Monte Ball. I watched this game very closely. Get some goal line work. So he's a name that I wanted to put out there.
Yeah.
But
especially with Hillman being benched.
Yeah, Hillman, and that was another reason. Hillman was inactive. I think they've had enough with his fumble issues. Ball actually didn't have any, big mental mistakes that you saw. Nothing glaring out there, or fumbles this game, and he performed well. The only thing is, if there was some kind of an injury to Moreno, the C.J. Anderson kid that played this week was a guy that they really liked. And, I think it might be a case of if Moreno goes down, it may be a split with those two. So don't jump all over Ball just yet, I think.
Well, a guy that maybe stash away for now.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying about if Moreno goes down. So, Matt, you're all in segment here. I'm going to name off a couple guys. It's almost going to be like a like Jeopardy type thing or whatever. I'm going to kind of name off, I am this guy, guess who I am. So I'm tied for 4th in the NFL in touchdown passes and passing yards. Currently the number 5 quarterback in fantasy. Who am I, and are you all in, folding, or calling?
Tied for 4th in the NFL. Is it Andy Dalton?
It is Andy Dalton. He has been tearing it up lately, so are you all in, folding, or calling on him?
I'm almost at the point here with him where I'm all in as far as I think he could be your starting quarterback the rest of the season if you needed it.
Wow.
Like if I'm sitting there with Tom Brady, I'm having a real hard time not.
Tom Brady's been miserable.
You know what I mean? A lot of guys are sitting there with Tom Brady as a starting quarterback.
Actually, I took flack from a guy on Twitter about this because he asked Tom Brady or Andy Dalton for this past weekend.
Yep.
And I said, Tom Brady, don't overthink it.
Yep.
Trust me, I was told how good of a call that was on Twitter from this guy all during both games.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's picking up Andy Dalton. I think that's something, just a good example of, I think Andy might be able to be your starting quarterback. There's certainly worse ones out there that you've been rolling with. If I had Tom Brady, I would be playing Andy Dalton.
He's had games like this before in the past last year, but it just
he's had stretches like this.
He's had stretch. That's just it. He's had
not
stretches,
just a game here and there.
He's had stretches where he's been good, but then he's had stretches where he just kind of comes back to earth after 3 or 4 games, and that's what I'm worried is coming soon for him.
The thing is, just with like we talked about just a minute ago, with all that talent around him, I think I could get in there. You could get in there and have 12 fantasy points.
Yeah. So yeah, he's definitely, he's getting it done. So here's another one. Since week 4, I'm the running back 12, and I had a bye week during then, so he's even lost a game to a lot of the people. On a points per game basis since week 4, only 8 running backs have more points per game than me. I've had 4 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks, but haven't had more than 9 carries in a game all year. I'm 2nd in the NFL in receptions by a running back, and I'm only 1 behind Jamal Charles, who's played in 1 more game than me. Who am I, and are you all in, folding, or calling?
Danny Woodhead.
How do you know? That's amazing that you're able to that you know these. So
I
Danny Woodhead is right. What do you think? All in, folding, or calling with Danny Woodhead?
I think the emergence of Matthews. God, he's been playing well. I don't think it's going to be as good for Woodhead here on out.
Can I just say, I don't know how you're getting these right. I hide the answers from you. I don't show them to you.
I got you wrong last week.
I'm trying to stump you. I really am. Wow. But go ahead. Talk about Ryan Matthews and Danny Woodhead. Sorry.
No, I think Ryan's been playing so well. I think they got to carve a little bit more of a role for him. Here I am saying that, and then obviously with these numbers, you could say, well, Danny Woodhead's been playing pretty well as well. maybe they've just found the niche for him and Ryan, and they're working together well. So, I like saying well quite a bit. Well,
well.
Am I all in on him? No. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold, and I'm going to try to trade him. But the problem is you're coming off a bye. You probably should have done that a week ago.
I agree, though. I think, yeah.
So maybe wait one more game, hope he does it again, then sell.
All right. Now for the wide receiver here. Tied for the 6th in the NFL in targets and receptions. 4th in the NFL in receiving yards. But I have not scored a touchdown in 4 straight weeks. And I only have 1 touchdown in the last 7 games. Who am I? And are you all in, folding, or calling? So it's obviously a guy who's been performing consistently, but just not getting it done in the touchdown department.
Torrey Smith?
Victor Cruz.
Damn it!
The guy that you have on one of your teams.
Yeah.
So what do you think of Victor Cruz hearing those numbers? Obviously getting a lot of targets, getting a lot of catches, getting a lot of yards, but not getting the touchdowns.
I'm still all in. He dropped a pass 2 weeks ago in the end zone that he's going to catch 99 out of 100 times. I think he's...
So 2 touchdowns in the last 7 games he would have had.
Woo! Yeah. Woo! He's a big play guy. He's a broken tackle away from taking it.
Isn't everybody a broken tackle away from taking it to the house?
No.
I mean, come on. I mean, except for maybe Mike Tolbert.
Exactly.
I mean,
there's plenty of guys like that.
Come on.
Eli, no picks in the last 2 games in a row now, right? There's some things that are looking a little better. There's some people coming back. Andre's going to be coming back.
Chalk that up as to things you thought you'd never say.
So I'm still all in on him. This week he had 9 points for you, almost 9 points. I'm all in. I can't give up on him yet. He's the best guy they have there in that offense. And it's got to get better, right? It's got to.
I like that. You kind of left that as a question. It's got to get better. Make sure to follow Matt and I on Twitter at Marcus Katkin and at Matt Dugal, and keep sending your questions to #BlindsidePod or emailing us to blindside@blindsidefootball.com. And, as you know, Matt, Rob, and I live tweeting every Sunday from noon till 1. We answer your start-sit questions using #AskBlindside. Matt, for the first time, no questions this week.
I feel
no
loved.
questions.
I feel loved. It was probably after the rankings that I had last week. Michael Vick at 7. Who the hell wants to ask me anything?
And all of our bad, bold predictions. But before we go, let's just recap. Kind of preview a little bit the Cincinnati-Miami game. Miami 6th in most points allowed to opposing defenses. So I think start your Bengals defense against them. Defenses the last couple weeks against Miami. 11 points, 13, 8, 16, and 15. And none of the defenses that they've played against have really been scary to them. We're talking Atlanta, New Orleans, Baltimore, Buffalo, New England. Solid defenses, but nothing that's sticking out to you. So I think Cincy defense, even better than most of those defenses there, should have a nice day. They're also allowing the 4th most points to opposing running backs. So we should see a good day from Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and hopefully Giovanni Bernard if they start giving him some more touches again. And then finally, the Bengals haven't allowed a rushing touchdown to a running back in 5 straight games, and only 2 this year. So it's going to be tough sledding ahead for Lamar Miller and Daniel Thomas in this game. What do you think? Anything in the Cincy Miami game that really sticks out to you coming up on Thursday night?
No, I mean, just the running back situation in Miami. It's something I'm not a big fan of. I mean, it's been getting better there, but there's still just such a timeshare and really almost a 50-50 split that I don't really want anything to do with either one of them. If you can find the guy that fell in love with Lamar Miller after the preseason and he liked the way things went last week, and you can get him for 90 cents on the dollar.
No, you won't get that much. 75
I'm saying you find the Rob Druins of your league.
Yeah.
The guys that loved Lamar in the preseason and
poor Rob.
And saw the fairly big game this past week. You might be able to talk him into, hey, it's here, here's Lamar. So
and like
other
I
than
said,
that, no, there's not much going on. Gibson's out for the year. We didn't mention that. Not that
Rashard Matthews is going to be the guy, the new guy, the new 3rd receiver for them, if that's anything.
Not on the radar.
And then just real quick to mention, like I said earlier, you'll see it in this Thursday night, back and forth in the drives. Lamar Miller opens it up, and then Daniel Thomas, then Lamar Miller, then Daniel Thomas for the whole drive. That's just kind of how they're doing things. But I guess that finishes it up for us, Matt. You got anything else?
No, that'll be it.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you guys on Friday. We'll recap that Thursday night game for you and preview all the Week 9 games.
See ya.
Yo, check it, it's my time. I'm rapping about Blindside, fantasy football podcast in this rhyme because they got me the inside scoop on Adrian Peterson. Yeah, he's that dude on Cam Newton. Yeah, they give me the news more on Megatron, Calvin Johnson if I stay tuned. On all quarterbacks, RG3 happens to be the fastest QB in the league. In fact, Colin Kaepernick is rider QB for them 49ers. It ain't hard to see, Some awesome people hosting Marcus Katkin and Matt Dugal. You should be joining. Skinny or fat, short or tall, anyone can tune in to Blindside Football. Have a try, dude. Listen on iTunes or Blindside